Hey guys, my name is Daniel, and I just wanted to make a quick video on the importance of counting your calories, why you should do so, and how to do it. If you're serious about bodybuilding and if you want to make some gains, even if you're not serious about it, but if you would still wish to make some gains, or even if you don't train but you want to learn how to control your weight, whether you gain weight or lose weight, this video is going to be for you. I have spent 12 years training, and for the vast majority of it, 6 to 8 years, I was training wrong, and I didn't have the correct information, and I thought that I was making progress, but I actually was not. And it's only when I started implementing some things that I started having accelerated results. Um, it's not complicated. Training and bodybuilding, or just training in general, is not complicated. There's a lot of there's a lot of things that you can add to micro enhance what you're doing, or I guess there's small sciences, and focused sciences about everything. But at the base, if you just want to build some muscle, or if you just want to control your weight, it is not complicated. There's just a base of information that you need to have, and based on that, then you can do whatever you want, or you can add or subtract stuff depending on your specific goals. I'm going to make this video, so if you see this at the beginning of your journey, you don't spend years without making progress like I did. Let's get started. Alright, so like I said, you can use this information to hit any type of goal. Let's say you're into CrossFit, let's say you want to be a better athlete, let's say you just want to lose some weight. Doesn't matter what your scope is, the science at the core will be the same. Now we're going to keep this bodybuilding focused because that's what we do here. But as I said, this, even if you don't want to build muscle, the base, everything will still apply to you. I don't care what type of human being you are. I don't care if you're young, if you're older, if you're a male, if you're a female, if you're something else. I don't care in which part of the world you're born. I don't care how fast your metabolism is. I don't care how slow it is. I don't care if you're smart, if you're less smart. I don't care what your talents are. Your body is not different. Like, yes, I get it. Some people might be genetic anomalies and they might have some strengths or weaknesses that most people don't. But for 99.99% of you, 99.99% of the information I will give you will apply to you 100%. And I said 99.99, but I'm pretty sure it applies to every single human being on planet Earth, except maybe a distinct few, but it shouldn't. I just don't want to exaggerate and say every single person, but it literally is for every single person. Anyways, where I'm going with this, when I started training, my ADHD was running wild. I thought, like, man, it doesn't matter what I do. I don't have to count my food. I don't have to count my chicken. I don't have to train hard. I don't have to do this. I don't have to do that. If I just show up in the gym for 5 years, there's no way I don't end up looking buff. There's no way I don't end up looking great. Well, guess what happened? After 5 years, I was looking like I wasn't even training. I did not make any progress. The only thing that happened, well, at least I built a discipline of showing up at the gym, and just built into me, so I didn't quit. But if you want results, it's not enough to just show up. If you want results, it's not enough to just think that your body or your results will change with time. You have to do these things day in, day out for a long time. All right, so let's get into it for real now. All right, so as you can see here, I have some words on the screen. I just wanted to lay them out before we start. When you're gonna build muscle, right? So when you're gonna want to put on muscle, basically you're gonna need three things. You're gonna need stimulus, which is gonna be the workout, which is gonna be what you do in the gym. Basically, you just have to shock the muscle, because the muscle needs to understand, like, oh my god, we need to grow, otherwise it's not working out, we're gonna die. Back then, if you want to take the stuff back to when we were, I lose the word, Neanderthals, when we were, you know what I mean, the people living in the caves. Basically, at the core, the brain doesn't understand, oh, I want to get buff to get chicks, or I want to get buff to get authority, or I want to get buff to get respect. Basically, the brain, what it understands is, okay, let's say a rock falls on us, well, now I have to push it out to survive. So what happens is, when you shock that, so basically, let's say a too big rock falls on top of you, well, now you're struggling to push it off of you, well, now, and you're using all your strength, well, now your brain understands that, okay, when this happens, I need to get stronger to be able to push a bigger rock out of me. Basically, when you build muscle, it's because you're destroying it, you're breaking everything there is, you're fatiguing it, you're basically depleting your muscles energy, and your brain understands that, okay, this is challenging, this is not good, if we don't do something about this, we're gonna die. So we have to reinforce this, we have to repair this, we have to recuperate, right? So we have to become stronger. So that is the core base of why muscles are building. And in the gym, when you're breaking stuff, well, you're breaking your muscles. This is the stimulus part. It's very important to train hard enough, and most people are not training as hard as they should or as they can, and this is another thing that will hinder your progress. But this is going to be a topic for another video, otherwise too long, too much. Stimulus, very important that you train hard enough, otherwise your brain just doesn't send the signals necessary for your muscles to actually grow because it's still in a comfort zone, right? So that's one part. Just wanted to clear that real quick. Then we have rest, which is extremely underrated. But once you've broken that muscle, we're gonna get back to food. But once you break that muscle, then you have to give it the proper nutrition for it to actually grow, and that growing will only take part while you're resting. So that's another thing I personally have not done for many years, but I've sacrificed my sleep. I've completely neglected it. This is again another topic for another video, but sleep is pretty much the number one thing you can do in your life to help your longevity, your health, just the best thing you can do for your quality of life in general. Again, whole other topic, but just wanted to clarify the importance of sleep. That is where you recover. Well, not just sleep, but also days off and just general recovery. That is when you recover. That is when you grow the most muscles. So I wanted to talk about these two factors because they go hand in hand with the food. But for this topic, again, we're gonna focus the most on calories. All right, so now let's get into the food, into the nutrition, into the what actually builds the muscle. That's why you've seen a lot of videos, they're gonna tell you that abs aren't built in the gym, they're built in the kitchen, stuff like that, which is true. I guess we'll cover that later. But the nutrition is probably the most important part of all three. They're all important, the stimulus, the food, and the rest are all extremely important. But I would argue that the food is the most important one. What you put in your body is more important. First of all, because that's just your fuel. Like if you don't, I'll explain it better, but if you don't give your body what it needs, well, it just doesn't have the energy to grow. It's kind of like a car. Like let's say you want to go 200 kilometers, or that's like 150 miles for you USA people, but let's say you want to go like 200 kilometers far and you only have 100 kilometers of gas in your car, well, you're not going to reach your destination. Like you can't tell yourself that, oh, my car is special. Don't get me with hybrid or electric or stuff like that. Your car is not special. Your car will not be able to drive further than what it can with the gas it has in the tank. So it's the same thing in the gym. If you don't give your body the proper fuel, it will just not physically, scientifically, mathematically, any type of way be able to achieve its goals, to get to where it's got to go, because it just doesn't have the proper fuel. And again, you might think that, oh, my body is different, oh, I'm special, oh, this doesn't apply to me. It does. It applies to you no matter who you are. So this is very crucial, very important information. Now, why can food also be considered the most important? Well, because even if you don't train, what you put in you will still dictate the quality of your energy and your health. And a lot of people that don't train, they neglect this because they think they can just get away with anything, or they don't eat enough protein, so they just feel bad. Just because you're not eating too much junk food, it doesn't mean that you're actually giving your body what it needs to grow, or not to grow, but to be optimal. And just because you don't feel hungry, again, it's not necessarily the best signal that you have what you need to function in a healthy, optimal way, whether it's to put muscle or not. Which I guess is one benefit of starting to calculate your calories in your food in the gym, because then at least you realize what you really need. Most people who don't train, they're never gonna go and try and increase their protein or stuff like that. So that's for the importance of food. Now, so what do you actually need? Well, there's a few things. Basically, we're gonna start writing here. I wanted to draw, but my skills are very terrible. So basically you will need calories. We're gonna have to talk about calories. Then we're gonna have to talk about protein. Then we're gonna talk about carbs, and then we're gonna talk about fats, and that's about it. Before I forget it, we're gonna write keto diet right here. Then we're also gonna add carnivore. I get a lot of people talking to me about the carnivore diet, and I'm not really sure which influencer started this trend, but this has got to be one of the stupider ones. Carnivore diet, then I guess we can talk about vegans, stuff like that. Not much of a big deal, but we'll put it here. There was another one I wanted to talk about, 30 bulk. Oh yeah, bulking, let's just say 30 bulk. Alright, let's talk about all of those because they all fit together. First things first, calories. This is the most important one. Why? Because calories pretty much is the sum total of everything you're putting in your body. So, you know, let's say you have like, you have one egg, which is going to be somewhere around 70 calories and 6 grams of protein. And let's say you have 100 grams of ground beef, cooked ground beef, which is going to be somewhere around 220 calories and 22 grams of protein. And then you can have something like a donut. I don't have, here in Canada we have Tim Hortons. In the States you're probably more familiar with Dunkin' Donut. I don't know their exact stats for their bakeries, but I guess they're somewhere around the same. For Tim Hortons, it's give or take 260 calories, 300 depending on the donut, bagel, donut, whatever. And I don't know the protein or the fats, all that doesn't matter. But basically calories is the sum total of everything you're putting in your body. So if you have an egg, ground beef, Dunkin' Donuts, bagel, yeah, you're not eating the franchise, you're eating the thingy, the food. It's going to be the total energy that you get from your food. So it doesn't matter what you eat. It does not matter what you eat. It has a caloric value. Now, yes, some foods can be zero, such as lettuce, but there's not a whole lot of those. And some foods can be very dense calories. Basically, your calories is your gas tank, right, in your vehicle. Let's say your gas tank is 60 liters. Well, you can put 61 liters, which is, I don't know, 15 gallons in the States. But basically, the point is you cannot put in that tank more than it can fill because it's just going to overspill, basically, and that overspill becomes fat. But the calories is basically your total. The calories, you know, it's the meat on the bone. It's basically the energy expenditure. I don't want to say it's the most important part, but it's what regroups everything. And in those calories, well, then you're gonna have specific macronutrients. In your calories, you're gonna have your protein, your carbs, and your fats. But every single one of these, you know, will be in calories. So the quality of your calorie is important. We'll get back to that. But yeah, quality of your calories is important. So we got the calories. Basically, you know, just remember that you have to count your calories. Calories is going to be like the total of energy / fat you're going to put in your body. So keep that in mind. It's going to be the base thing you want to know. Now, how it works is basically, well, actually, let me just cover this real quick. So in calories, you know, then depending on the type of food that you're going to eat, then you're going to have different stats. Now, there's a lot of vitamins or a bunch of other stuff that there's in foods. I'm just going to cover the protein, the carbs, and the fats. The protein serves a multiple purposes in the body. Number one, building muscle. If you don't have enough grams of protein, your body will not have the necessary fuel in order to build muscle. Now, that's not the only thing it does. Protein also helps you feel good. It also gives you energy. It also helps for your overall health. And this is what I was saying. A lot of people, you know, they just go on around during their day and they think that they don't need a whole lot, but they don't actually have a whole lot of quality calories. They don't have a whole lot of quality protein or macronutrients in their calories in their foods they're eating. So I get it, you're eating clean, you're not eating bad junk food, but you're neither giving your body enough fuel to sustain you. So you have an optimal mood, hormones, sleep, skin, all that stuff. So the first most important thing for the gym, if you want to lose weight or put on weight, you have to know where your calories are. But then you have to make sure that in those calories you get good quality calories. So let's say if you eat eggs, one of the best foods you can have, and meat, again, I get it, some people don't like meat, that's not the point, but it's the most quality protein you can get. So if you eat 100 grams of ground beef, you will have a lot of quality protein because there's also a lot of amino acids. But let's say if you eat just a donut, well, the donut will have literally more calories than 100 grams of ground beef and one egg together, but it's not going to help, it's not going to make you feel the same, because yes, the calories are there, but it just doesn't have quality nutrients to fill you up. So yes, it's, you have that sugar, you have that blood rush, but it's just not good enough to help you hit your goals. That's for the protein. Then the carbs, basically look at it this way. Also, I'm not trying to go very scientifically into each what thing does. This is just to keep it simple. Carbs are basically what's going to give you energy, right? Carbs are what's going to, carbs such as rice, potatoes, oats. Those are going to fill your muscle. They're gonna help your muscles hold more water to glycogen and fill the muscles, but they're also gonna give you energy. They're gonna sustain your energy, give you like a boost. That's why sometimes, you know, a lot of people, they love rice because they just eat rice, but they don't know it. It's carbs, it's slow carbs, so basically it gives them energy for the next few hours. Also, when you have too much, but also when you have too much, or depending on your metabolism and all that, it can also get you tired. So depending on the type of carbs you have, well, it can spike your insulin. So then you feel this boost all of a sudden, and then you have a crash. So again, that's why some people, they have like a big meal and then they feel tired afterwards. Well, it's because they had too many carbs, or maybe too many fast carbs in their lunch. And finally, we have the fats. It's not the same thing as body fats. You know, the lipids, the fats in the food you're eating, those are actually good for you. They're very good for your brain and for your mood and your hormones. It's not bad. So that's about it. I'm not going to go into fats too much, and carbs, I guess I pretty much said everything I had to say about it. Obviously you want to optimize your carbs and your fats. Also, you obviously want to optimize everything, but if you want to lower it down to a very brute, barbaric way, calories and protein are the only thing you need to track. You need to get enough calories so it sustains your goals, which we're going to talk about right now, and you want to make sure that in those calories you have enough protein so it's actually quality calories and not just junk food. Alright, so that was for explaining the macronutrients. I hope that made a little bit of sense. If not, well, I guess we'll make a clearer video later. Now let's explain how to put on weight and how putting fat and losing fat works. Basically, I'm just gonna move these things right here, open this up a little bit. We're gonna do these right here because we're gonna get back to them. So basically how it works, now this will vary depending on who you are, male, female, young, old, this will vary. You're gonna have your base metabolic rate, not your base metabolic rate, but like your base expenditure. So this is going to be like your, let's call it, this is not the exact term, but this is going to be your base expenditure. What does that mean? That means that every single day, human beings, just in the fact that we're talking, walking, breathing, sleeping, we use calories. So if you were to have a sedentary life where you do the same thing every day, well, the body uses calories to survive. That is why we get naturally hungry, you know, because even if you don't train, well, you still have to eat. You get hungry to sustain everything. There's a whole lot of websites out there that you can calculate your base calories. It's very simple. I don't have the exact information for women and all that, but stuff like that by heart. But again, it's very simple to just Google your basic rate online. Take for example, we'll take me for example, right? me, I believe I'm somewhere around 26 and 2700 calories daily. Again, that's give or take. This is not including the gym. Well, I mean, including the gym or not. So basically, if you go to the gym, which doesn't burn that many calories, but if you do daily, I'm starting to mix it up here, sorry. 2600 is about my base. What does that mean? Is that based on my size, my muscle mass, my height, my age, my body will need X amount of calories to sustain myself throughout the day. Now for me, I reckon that's about 2600 calories. What happens is that, let's say I only eat 2000 calories today. By the way, sorry, I forgot to mention, if you're eating at 2600 calories, so if you're eating your base expenditure day in, day out at the exact amount, what's going to happen? Your weight will remain the same forever. Now let's say I eat 2000 calories today. Basically, in this day, I'm in a deficit of 600 calories. So in that day, let's say we're on Tuesday, and I'm supposed to eat 2600 calories. I didn't change my exercise, I didn't change anything, but I ate less. Well, first of all, you're going to feel a little bit hungry, but second of all, you're only eating 2000 calories, which means you're in a deficit of 600 calories. So that day, you have lost 600 calories. Now, 1 pound of fat is 3500 calories. So if on a random Tuesday, instead of eating 2600 calories, I've only ate 2000, well, now I have lost 600 calories out of that 3500. So if I was to do the same thing again, 6 times? If I was to do the same thing, so if I was to lose that 600 calories each day for the next 6 days, which would give me 3600 calories, that means that 600 times 6, that's 3600 calories. That means that after 6 days, I can lose 1 pound of fat. And it's just simple as that. Now, yes, in those calories, you're gonna have protein, carbs, and fats, which will all optimize your hormones, your health, your pump at the gym, how you function. That's why calories are not equal. If I was to just have 10 donuts a day, then yeah, I would have, the same. Well, if I was to have, 7 donuts a day, then yeah, I would still have the same 2100 calories. But you will not have the same experience. Your body will still not have the necessary nutrients it needs to perform how it should. So yeah, if I was, if you lose, again, also your weight is not going to shift from one day to another. There's water retention going on. So depending on your carbs, your training, your metabolism, your sleep, your body will hold more or less water. So when people go on diets, oftentimes they're going to realize that they're losing weight aggressively in the first few days. I hate to break it down to you, unless if you're on some steroids, performance enhancing drugs, well, even then you're not going to see results in a few days. That's just water getting flushed out of your system because your body is holding glycogen differently depending on where you are. So if you're hopping on the scale after the holidays and in a matter of a week you've lost 3 kilograms or 6 pounds, I hate to break it down to you, but that's not fat. That's just water. Losing fat takes time over weeks and months. So again, weeks, months. So in this scenario, let's say that we wanted to lose some fat. Today we ate 600 calories less. 1 pound of fat is 3500 calories. We do that 6 days. We do that over the course of 6 days. So after 1 week, we're losing 1 pound of fat. Quick parenthesis, if you're trying to lose weight, you don't want to do it too fast because you're going to crash your metabolism. You should aim to lose somewhere around 0.5 pounds of fat per week, or if you want to go aggressively, maybe 1 pound of fat a week, but you shouldn't try to go more aggressive than that. I just realized I had the headset on my head. I got that off. So that's that for losing fat. Now So I'm going to draw it here, because now let's say that, you know, we're only having 2,000 calories. Well, basically this is going to be the fat loss zone. Now again, you know, you're not going to see the results from today to tomorrow. It's going to take weeks. So you do this over weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. But, you know, based on this mathematical formula where you can actually calculate how many calories you're using every day, well, you can actually predict fairly precisely when you're going to hit your goal and when you're going to hit your goal, because you know, okay, if I'm eating this amount of calories every day and this is my base expenditure, well, after 6 weeks I can lose, well, after 6 days I can lose this amount of fat. So if I do this for 12 months, well, I'm going to lose this amount of fat. Or if I do this for 4 months, well, I'm going to lose this amount. So it's actually a very mathematical thing. Like, it's very easy to predict. As long as you stick to your diet and as long as you stick to your routine, you can predict when and where you will get to where you want to be. Now, granted, when you get to lower body fats, things slow up a little bit. But when you get to lower body fats, you will know what you're doing. And when you get there, you will know what you're doing. You're not going to get to low body fats by accident. Now, let's say you want to put on muscle, right? Which was the whole point of the, let's say you want to put on muscle. So now, this is where personally I didn't struggle with it, but I thought I was special. I'm like, I don't have to eat more calories. I don't need to do all that. But you do, because it's the same thing as losing fat, right? If you're eating every day at 2,600 calories and you're not eating in a deficit, I'm sorry, but you're never going to lose fat, unless if you do cardio, which I'll cover in a second. Well, I'm actually going to cover it right now. If you do cardio, right, where you intentionally lose more calories during a specific time frame, well, you know, just cardio, you just do more exercise to lose more calories, that's also going to help, because the same thing as food, let's say you only eat 2,000 calories, but now let's say you also go jog or you hit the Stairmaster for 20-30 minutes, which, by the way, if you're trying to lose fat, the Stairmaster is one of the most efficient ways you can do it, in my humble opinion. But let's say you hit the Stairmaster for 30 minutes quite intensively, you're going to lose another 500 calories. So what does that mean? That in the same day, if you ate 2,000 calories and you hit minus 500 calories on the Stairmaster, well, now for today, you're actually at 1,500 calories. You are actually at 1,500 calories, right? So keep that in mind. Also, if you have a construction job or some type of job where you're active, well, you can take in consideration that you're wasting more energy. For example, I'm doing some cleaning contracts and I calculate about 300 calories lost per hour just doing the cleaning. So on those days that I do that, well, I eat about 1,000 calories more for the gym. Otherwise, I would be in a deficit for that day. So you have to calculate, you know, based on your activity, ballpark. Plus, once you start doing it, you will see how it feels and you will notice how your body responds. So you will get to know yourself better and be able to implement stuff. But at the core, it's very, very simple. You just have a certain base expenditure. If you eat less, you will lose fat. If you eat more, you will put on muscle and / or fat. And then if you exercise, well, obviously it's gonna lower your, you know, the more you exercise, the more you have to eat, because the more energy you're burning, so your expenditure is more. Like, well, basically when you exercise, you actually increase your expenditure, sorry, not the opposite, because you can have more food that day. Another thing, when I was dieting, I realized that, okay, I can eat less, but then I don't have enough energy to do what I want to do and I'm feeling all weird and it's not great. I realized that for me, I can actually eat my base expenditure, if not even slightly more, but that gives me the energy to do more cardio. And during that 30-45 minutes of cardio, I would lose 500-600 calories. So you can actually eat your base expenditure of 2,600 calories, but just because you have the energy to go hit cardio for 30 minutes, and now you're losing 500 calories, or now you're at 2,100 calories. So even if you're eating the same, you're still losing fat because your expenditure is more than what those calories gave you energy for. Or you can just eat less and that will be the same effect, but you will probably feel weaker, more depleted, and cardio is just great for your cardiovascular health. So if you do want to lose fat, I do recommend that you add cardio to your diet. I don't recommend that you merely diet. Cardio is great for you, whether you love it or not. Now, how does it work to put on muscle? Well, super simple. Now, if you want to put on muscle, you have to do the same thing. So you have to stimulate your body. You have to train hard enough in the gym so your brain goes like, "Oh, what's going on? We have to develop the muscle to survive." So you have to shock the system. You have to train hard enough. Important. You have to give it the proper nutrition, which is going to be enough calories with enough protein in it, so it has enough fuel plus the right fuel to build what's needed. And then you have to rest, because that is when all this process gets together to combine great muscle babies. How do we go calories wise for bulking? Well, it's pretty simple. If you're bulking, which first of all, if you don't know if you should cut or bulk, just get lean. Just get super lean. Well, it depends, how you're starting out, but in most cases, you just want to get lean. Like if you're overweight, you want to lose some of that fat, because then once you're lean, it's just better. You're gonna feel better, plus you're gonna visually see what you're doing more. But if you have a whole lot of fat, basically fat is like a coat around you that hides your muscles. So you might be training right, you might be doing stuff right, but you're not gonna see that much because the fat is hiding everything. So if you're overweight, at first I would recommend getting leaner, and if you're more like skinny fat or more skinny, well, then you should start with a bulk. But basically, it's super simple. When you bulk, you have to eat more. So if at 2600 calories, that's my maintenance, well, at 2600 calories, I get enough. Now, to bulk, this is where people get it all messed up. You do not need a lot of calories. You need, give or take, 100 or 200 calories more per day, and that's it. Everything rest is gonna go to fat. So depending on how you are muscle size, in your journey, if you're natural or not, some few factors, you're not gonna need more than maybe 200 to 300 calories a day. So, and even there, even at 300 calories a day, you're gonna slowly put on some fat. So let's say for me, these are real numbers for me, I usually should be at about 29 to 3000 calories for my bulk, and anything more than that is going to become fat. And you see recently, well, not recently, but over my past few months, I've actually had a lot of days where I was at 3,200 calories, sorry, and some days I even went above at 3,500 and 4,000. And on those days, well, I put on some fat, because recently I've been slowly putting fat more than I wanted, but it's because I know I was cheating on my diet and I was going way overboard on calories. You only need a tiny amount, like 200-300 calories more to grow muscle. This is going to be your muscle growth zone. Muscle growth zone, right? So you need those calories more. And again, just to get back to my own personal experience, because I don't want you guys to make the same mistakes. For many years I thought, I'm special, I don't need this. You need this. It's physically impossible for your body to put on muscle. Muscle is like mass, like it's a muscle mass. It needs food, it needs something external to be able to transform that energy and that food into muscle. If it doesn't have enough resources, if it doesn't have what it needs to build that, well, you're not building that. If you need 1,000 bricks to build a house, but you have 20 bricks, you're not building a house. It's exactly the same type of thing. And I thought, man, these things don't apply to me. They apply to me, they apply to you. If you want to get serious, you're going to have to count your calories or hire a coach to make your training plan and respect it. So in this zone, you're going to grow muscle. Simple as that. And everything else, so everything above that, everything else, it's going to become fat, because it's a surplus. No, it's not because you eat way more that you're going to put on way more muscle. There is a limit. There is a daily limit of how much you can add. And beyond that is just going to become fat. And that is, well, I'm actually going to pause it right here and record again. And that is why some of these bro science or bro programs that you see online make no sense. Now, I don't want to bash on all those things, and I'm not saying they don't work. Well, I mean, they don't work. But, if we take a dirty bulk, right? Well, people say like, oh, you have to bulk, 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 bulk. You have to eat a bunch of hamburgers, bunch of stuff like that. Well, what happens during a bulk or a bro bulk or a dirty bulk? Well, first of all, people are gonna start eating a bunch of random calories like bagels, candies, hamburgers, fries, stuff like that. Which nothing wrong with burgers and fries, but they're gonna start eating a bunch of junk food, which is not good for you. So first of all, they're getting way too many calories in their system, which converts into fat, which they will then have to lose in a diet to get back lean and muscly. Well, you're not going to lose muscle, but you have to lose the fat to see the muscles. So first of all, you're eating way too many calories for no reason whatsoever, because your body cannot process all that into muscle, and you will have to lose the fat. So it's literally like you're giving yourself more work. And second of all, usually they're not going to eat quality food. So they're not going to eat more meat, more eggs, more rice, more oatmeal, more stuff they should. And it just, becomes a mess. That's for the dirty bulk. Vegans, I have nothing against the vegans, but make sure that you get enough protein. Like, I get it. You're not eating meat, you're eating your stuff. That's cool. I respect that. Everybody with their choice. But you have to get enough protein. So make sure you get enough protein. To build muscle, you need give or take 1 pound of 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body mass. So let's say you're somewhere about, I'm gonna simplify stuff here, but let's say you're about 150 pounds, so you're gonna need 150 grams of protein per day to be optimal. Now, if you're 150 pounds, you're not gonna need 150 grams of protein, because it's 1 gram of protein per pound of lean muscle mass. So you're not all lean muscle mass in your 150 pounds. You also have your bones, your water, stuff like that. So you can get away with less grams of protein, but you want to get to at least 80% of that 150. You want to get to at least minimum 80% of that of your mass. After 1-to-1, so after 1 gram per 1 pound, you can still get some results, but it's a very diminishing effect, and at about 80% you're starting to get most results. So just go for 1 gram of protein per 1 pound of muscle mass. So if you're vegan, that's cool, none of my concern, great. Just make sure you're getting enough protein, which might be slightly more of a challenge. Now the keto diet and the carnivore diet, these are the ones that just bog my mind. Like, I just can't comprehend it. I always have dudes at the gym showing up like, oh, I'm eating meat, I'm on a carnivore diet. That's great. I'm glad for you. That's super good. Meat is one of the highest quality proteins and foods you can have. That's great. The problem is they're not counting anything. So they think they're eating a lot, which, by the way, I don't know if you've noticed, but eating a steak is great. You feel full, you feel satisfied because of the protein, by the way. That is why you can eat like a bagel, like a donut, and not feel satisfied, is the protein. So if you eat like a whole bag of chips, you're still hungry, it's because there's no protein. That's where the importance of protein. You can eat a big steak, which is only going to be like 300 to 400 calories and like 40 grams of protein. You're going to feel full. Well, dude, you have to eat 7-8 more of those a day to hit your goals, to be able to put enough muscle on that day. So the guys that are on a carnivore diet, it's great. I much better wish you were on a carnivore diet than a dirty bulk type of stuff. But you still have to count your calories. You still have to give your body enough protein, enough fuel, enough juice for it to actually be able to build muscle. I don't care that you're eating A5 Wagyu every meal of the day. If you're not putting in enough calories in your body from that meat, you're not gonna grow. Simple as that. And if you were to eat too much meat, so if you were to eat 20 A5 Wagyu steaks a day and you blow your calories, well, I'm sorry to break it down to you, but you're gonna get fat. It's simple as that. Yes, the quality of the protein is important, but total amount of calories, it's what's gonna determine your energy and your fat levels. So you're on a carnivore diet, that's good for you, that's great. I still think you should mix it up, and I still think that you have to count your calories. Like, I get all my buddies, oh, I'm eating this amount of meat, and none of them is making any sort of progress. Why? Because none of them is training hard enough nor eating enough. So carnivore diet is great, but you still have to count your calories. Keto diet, everything the same thing that I have to say about carnivore diet. the fight about keto diet is that people basically are eating no carbs, which in theory is great. In practicality, I just don't see the point. It's just dump. I get it. Carbs might, how we spoke about the energy, it might raise your insulin level, so it might spike and crash your energy. That's first of all if you have like too much fast carb, like too many fast carbs, bad stuff like oil, and if you have too many plates. But if you have like a normally rationed amount of lentils or rice or oats, it's actually going to help you. If you're training and if you don't have any carbs in your diet, your pump is going to be gross. Your training is going to be not fun. You're going to have no energy. I get it. People try to cut carbs because it sounds cute, like, ooh, you don't want to eat bread, it's processed. Okay, which I agree, that's great. But if you don't get enough quality food in you, and if you don't get enough calories, depending on your goal, you're not going anywhere. And carbs give you energy. I don't understand why somebody would cut carbs out of their diet when it's literally what's making you feel good, full of energy. And again, I don't want to use the word energy again and again and again, but it's what's giving you the energy to do what you need to do. So I can't exactly comprehend why people would remove that from their diet, but hey, if that's you, well, whatever floats your boat, right? But you still have to hit your calories and you still have to hit your protein. Otherwise, it's not going anywhere. That's pretty much it. I mean, that's pretty much it. I'm sure I'm forgetting some stuff, but that's about it. We all have a base expenditure of calories every single day, which you can find with the calculator online. Very simple stuff, just like, I don't know if you can see my screen here, but base calorie calculator, I forget the name. BMR calculator right there. Use this thing right here, BMR calculator. So for me, I'm 28. I'm 5'9" and I weigh about 184. Calculate what? Sorry. Calorie calculator is what we're looking for. So 28, not BMR, but calorie calculator, something like that. 184. Oh yeah, sorry. So this is what I forgot. So well, I didn't forget it, but we spoke briefly. Depending on your energy, depending on your daily expenditure, your metabolic rate will change and your baseline energy will change. So you see here earlier on the other screen, it said that my baseline was about 1800 calories. For exercise, I would put myself either very active or active, and the amount of exercise that you do every day will change, your the calories you have. So for me, see, I told you guys I was 2600. It's giving me 2758, but it also depends on if I change my activity. Well, it's gonna depend, right? So you play with those, you find your own. Again, you're within a couple hundred calories, not a big deal. You're gonna adjust. And I'm gonna make another video, on how to exactly calculate your calories for a bulk or for a cut and what to do, all that. I don't want to make this too long. Again, it's too longer than I thought. But this is the theory. First, you just get your number, right? So you just find your number that you're at, and then you determine, do you want to lose fat or not? And then it's super simple. If you want to lose fat, you're hoping to lose about half a pound per week, which is going to be somewhere around 250 calories to 500 calories less than what you should have per day. Again, slow process, going to take weeks and months, but at least it's sustainable. And if you want to put on muscle, so if you're pushing hard in the gym, you're eating all the right stuff, but you're not putting on mass, well, you're not eating enough. So you have to eat more calories, about 200-300 more calories than what you need daily. And you have to make sure that you're hitting 1 gram of protein per 1 pound of body weight. Protein super important. Your fats, don't neglect them. They're going to help you for your brain and your hormones, especially in a cut. And your carbs, they're going to give you energy. And that's about it. 1 pound of 5 was 3,500 calories. So that's going to help for your calculus, for your numbers, mathematics. And that's about it. Then based depending on your goals, well, you're just gonna play with those numbers. And I guess I understand I might have put the numbers and the words all over the screen, but me, once I've understood this, it was very simple. Why? Because, okay, well, I understand why I'm not making any progress. I'm not eating enough. And as soon as I've started eating enough consistently, not just once, but when you start eating enough consistently day after day, well, I saw it. I saw my palms get better. I saw my body, increase. And same thing when I had a coach. When I had a coach, the guy never took the time to explain to me this, so I never really understood it. Um, he had me on about 1,600 calories, right? So he had me on about 1,600 calories a day. Which, by the way, don't do that. That's way not enough. You're gonna feel bad. It's just not. That's too much. Don't do that. Anyways, that's another story. And basically, the only thing I was eating every day was either ground beef or chicken and broccoli. And I was eating this day in, day out, day in, day out, day in, day out for about 2 years. And I wasn't losing fat, and I couldn't understand what was going on. Well, what I didn't understand is calories. So I was eating ground beef and chicken and broccoli during the day. I was respecting my diet, starving, being hungry, being miserable, and I was going outside to hang out with my friends. And I would have a very small Ben and Jerry ice cream cup. Now I'm saying very small sarcastically. Well, I guess this is the small format, but the issue is one of these things. Hold on, I'm just gonna say the stats because I forget. I don't know if it's 700 or 1,500. Yes, they're about 1,000 to 1,200 calories per cup. So I would go hang out with my friends, and I would respect my diet all day long. Eating only ground beef, chicken, and broccoli. And I think, okay, I'm losing fat. And at night, I would be so hungry that I would have one of these things of ice cream and be like, I'm not putting on fat. It's just ice cream. Well, in this little tub of ice cream, there were literally more calories than what I was eating in my 6 meals throughout the day. And yes, that little tub of ice cream will ruin everything you've worked for, because with that, you're gonna blow your calories. And now, not only that you're not losing fat because you're putting on too many calories, but you're actually gaining fat because you put too many calories for that day, and you will have to lose them in the future. So, the beautiful thing when you understand how this works is you can actually eat whatever you want. So, well, not every and not anything you want, and not put on fat, but basically, I usually prep my meals. I usually eat, oatmeal, eggs, rice, lentils, meat, basic bodybuilding stuff day in, day out, just because it's easy and I don't care, and I eat with the purpose of bodybuilding. But there are days where I cheat. There are days where I'll have a pizza or chips or cola, or it doesn't matter, and I still count those calories. And in my day, I will calculate, okay, well, I just ate a full pizza. Okay, that's going to be 2,000 calories. Perfect. And then to get my protein, I'm going to have more protein shakes, or I'm going to have something like cottage cheese or like egg whites, which is very intense in eggs. And I'm going to calculate my total calories for that day. And you might still lose fat, depending on your goals and how many total you are. Like, there are days where I was dieting where I would have a full pizza and I lost fat that day, or like I lost calories that day, because I was still below my base expenditure, or I added jogging or stuff like that. So once you know how these things work, it's very simple. You have your baseline. If you eat less, you will lose fat over time, and if you eat more, well, you need a little bit more to put on mass, and the rest will become fat. Well, from there you can just gauge, and you can change your food day in, day out. And one day you want to go to the restaurant, that's cool. You just take a phone out, send a picture of the plate to ChatGPT, ballpark the calories, and then change whatever you eat during that day accordingly. That's about it. Thank you guys for watching the video. If you've enjoyed, drop a comment, like, subscribe. See you guys in the next one.